So the textbook defines social cognition, as you can see, is the mental activity that relates to social activities and helps us meet the goal of understanding and predicting the behavior of ourselves and others. So basically, social cognition is really important because it allows us to better understand people's behaviors and to understand what is important and what is not important to know about someone. So, for instance, we can easily make judgments with the use of good social cognition. We can decide, oh, this person seems dangerous, or oh, this person seems nice. It's not judgments as we think of today. It's like, oh, she's so judgmental. It's not that kind of thing. It just allows us to make judgments and to hopefully keep ourselves from getting into bad situations. A lack of social cognition is something that you can see in people with schizophrenia because they don't have the ability to learn and remember faces, so they have no facial recognition capabilities, really, which social cognition um, gives us a way to remember and understand things in a way that people with schizophrenia just they can't do that. So social cognition is really important. It allows us to be thrown into a situation and immediately adapt because we can learn about the things around us and feel confident and comfortable where we are. So social cognition is obviously a very important part um, of everyday life that people, I think, sometimes don't know about. So, social cognition can actually be really hard to measure because it is a really complex topic. But I did find one experiment where they used children from the ages of 5 to 7, and experimenters created 34 stories that had correlating illustrations. The stories included something called second order belief. The particular story that they shared was that Maria thinks that Ken thinks that she took the potatoes. In this situation, the children reading know that what Maria thought isn't true. So, the series of pictures and words in the stories gives children a series of questions. The questions are probing questions or first order false belief questions. Second order false belief questions and ignorance questions. The answers to these questions allowed experimenters to understand how social cognition worked. It allowed them to see how these children made assumptions and reached conclusions based on just the few things that they were told. So obviously this experiment is sort of complex, but it's the best one that I could find for understanding social cognition. So, a real life example and application of social cognition would be facial recognition in babies. Children learn to remember faces and surroundings at a really young age. This allows parents to teach their children the danger of strangers and teach them to be aware of their surroundings. Social cognition teaches children how to recognize good and bad people in good and bad situations. So that's really important for a child to have that developed so that they can keep themselves in a safe situation and in a safe environment. So, although social cognition is really important, there are several limitations, one of which is the organization of social cognition. So, the problem with the organization is that the theory tells us that cognition comes from the interaction between people, behaviors, and the environment. This is true, but it doesn't tell us how much each factor plays a role in social cognition, and that's sort of hard if you don't know what does what. Another issue is social cognition focuses only on learning. It doesn't consider any of the biological or hormonal factors that go into it. And that sort of relates to the next limitation because social cognition doesn't consider the biological or hormonal factors, but it also doesn't consider emotions or motivations. It only considers the things that we see around us and the things that we remember, but not the way we felt. So it was only the things that we viewed. So it's hard to figure out how we felt or what our motivations were. So those are just some of the limitations of social psychology, or not social psychology, social cognition.